Hello and welcome to Tomlin's Harmonica podcast, where I'll be hanging out with players and teachers and having conversations loosely based around harmonica. This week's podcast is part of a series where I'll be interviewing beginners rather than pros. Today's guest is Peter, who started playing a few months ago at the start of lockdown and is already getting over some big hurdles in his playing. Okay, so Peter, thank you so much for agreeing to do this. Before we get started with harmonica questions, will you just tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from and what you do?
Oh, sure. Well, I'm Peter. I'm from Perth in Western Australia. That's probably the most isolated capital city in the world. I think we're renowned for that. My regular daytime job is as a pharmacist. I own a few pharmacies in country Western Australia in Collie. It's about 200 kilometres from the capital city here.
Very cool.
That's what I do.
Nice. And what brought you to harmonica? Why did you choose to start learning harmonica?
It's a long and convoluted story, so I'll tell you how it went. My wife is a taiko drum player, and we got invited along to a gig where some of her friends were playing. So there's some taiko drummers, a blues guitarist, a Japanese flutist, and a didgeridoo player, and a Slavic singer who was singing in a made-up language. And it's not the sort of concert I usually go to, but it turned out to be very, very interesting and entertaining. I had a front row seat and I was really enjoying it. And while I was watching it, my mind sort of wandered a little bit. So what they were doing is they were taking turns leading the performance, and they were all sort of riffing off each other. And I thought that was really amazing, considering all these instruments, you never usually see them together. Mm-hmm. And I thought, what could I play and get into this kind of a scene? Because I couldn't imagine myself doing it with a stringed instrument. And I sat there and I thought, a harmonica, that's where I need to go. So I did my research from then, looking at a way to go that I could get involved in some sort of improvisational music, which is what I wanted to do.
That's very cool. So that was an interesting choice, because I think a lot of people come to harmonica because they're specifically into harmonica music. So there are kind of generally two strands: either they're Bob Dylan, Neil Young fans, or they're blues fans, and that's why they've started playing. So it's interesting to hear that it was kind of the practicality of the instrument as much as anything else that led to picking it up.
For sure, yeah.
That's brilliant. And how long have you been playing for?
Well, I started playing in March, in concert with the time that things started to shut down for COVID. All of my usual evening activities had been closed off. The gym was closed. My martial arts dojos were closed. There was really nothing for me to do. And I was sitting here thinking, I'm going to waste my time watching Netflix and playing computer games. I'm going to try and make something useful out of this time I've got on my hands. And so that's what got me into this. I mean, I have got other musical instruments, but I kind of got bored with them, or wasn't really particularly progressing with them. So I wanted to have a good crack at the harmonica and be stuck with it for the length of time that we were stuck with COVID, and see how far.
So do you think you'll carry on after lockdown ends and everything's opened up again?
Well, this instrument's turning out differently to all my other attempts at music, because I actually have them always sitting with me here on the side of the desk. I can pick it up every 5 minutes when I'm at my computer and have a little play on it. It's not too hard to get out. It's very easy to play, and it's still captured my interest every day since I've started, where nothing else has done that. So I'm pretty certain this one's going to be with me for a very long time.
That's really cool. I'm always interested about the instruments that people play before they play harmonica, because even talking to all the pros I've been talking to for the podcast, very few of them started with harmonica. They started with, I'm doing air quotes, a serious instrument. And obviously harmonica is a serious instrument, otherwise we wouldn't be here. But a lot of people don't know that at the beginning. So I'm interested in what the journey was before harmonica. What other instruments did you play?
Right. Well, No serious instruments.
No.
I started I started off with a banjo, and because I particularly liked the sound of country music after, what was it I'd seen? Oh, Brother, Where Art Thou? I thought,
Oh
I've got
yeah.
to get into this old-timey music. And I thought, I'll get a banjo. It's got less strings than a guitar. It can't be that hard. Never, it was bloody hard. So after that, I thought I'd toned it down even more and got a ukulele because that has only 4 strings. And, that's I'm a lazy player, aren't I? And so I started playing that, but I had trouble with the fingers on the small fretboard, and I could tell that it was going to be frustrating me for life if I carried on down that path. And I can play with it for a little bit, but yeah, it keeps going back in the gig bag, unfortunately.
No, that's fair. That's fair.
That's my musical instrument progression. I have had a bit of a bang on the taiko drums with my wife, but I'm not very musical with those. But
That's fair.
yeah,
That's fair.
I think you're either good at or you're not.
I like that you've had the kind of progressively smaller instruments until you get to harmonica. That's brilliant. So I mean, you are so fresh. You've started in March, which is really really cool. What's been the biggest struggle so far?
I think the struggles keep coming. So when I picked up the harmonica for the first time, I had a bit of a blow, and I thought, gee, I'm getting a really big sound off this thing. And I didn't realize it was going to be quite so powerful as it was. Mm-hmm. So I had to play from a few tabs that I picked up, and I thought, oh, yeah, I can do this. It's not particularly difficult. But I then worked out that I wasn't actually blowing clear notes. Mm-hmm. And I worked out that I needed to do that. And that was my first particular challenge. That was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be, but I've got past that now. Currently, I feel like I need to work on bending, which is where I'm up to with your course. That was my biggest struggle. I think it probably took me 2 or 3 weeks before I got a bend that I recognised as a bend, and it caught me by quite by surprise when it happened. That I thought, I did it. How did I do it? Next couple of hours struggling trying to pick it up again. But thankfully now I can pick up the harmonica and get a 4-draw bend relatively easily. Well, it happens. I can do it now without thinking.
Yeah.
So that was my biggest challenge today, getting that first bend.
But that's brilliant, and it's I think it's really useful for people to hear that you hit it, and then you weren't sure really how or what happened, and then it was a case of trying to find it again.
I just recognized that, and that was. It was really great when it happened. You don't get those experiences again, I suppose.
No, I mean it is super exciting, and you will get there are some other big breakthrough moments. I think that you'll hit and think, wow, this is awesome. But yeah, clean notes and bending. I like what you said about the clean notes, is that you kind of picked up the harmonica and you thought it sounded cool and didn't realize that you weren't playing clean notes. And that's something I see all the time, because when people join the school, as you know, there's a kind of self-selection of what level you're at. And a lot of people will say that they're a little bit more advanced than they are and say, yeah, I can do clean notes. And then I'll hear recordings of them playing, and I'll have to say, actually, you need to work on your clean notes. They're not as consistent as they could be. So I think, yeah, dialing your ear in is quite an important thing. How do you find that? Do you feel that your ear was naturally musical, or are you having to work at it?
Well, I must have some natural ability there, I think, because I'm able to follow along the 12-bar blues progression quite easily. I can pick those up in songs that I'm listening to in the car, and the tests that you've put out there in the course. And as I said, I have been tinkering around with musical instruments for a while, so I kind of know what to expect and what some sounds will sound like. Doesn't mean I can produce them. It's like I can tell what they should sound like in my head.
Yeah.
Getting the harmonica to comply with that is the hard part.
No doubt. So has any of this process been scary? Has there been anything that you've thought, this is overwhelming to start learning an instrument?
No,
No,
not really. Not
that's good.
for me.
Yeah.
It's I look forward to each new lesson that comes along, and I try and get myself to the stage where I'm ready for it. And even if I haven't quite got everything perfect, I don't think you can ever really get everything perfect, and you shouldn't really try and do that before you move on to the next thing. Always keep challenging yourself. But no, nothing's been really scary. I suppose the only thing that's worrying me is when I have to pick this thing up in front of a live audience and perform is probably the only thing that's going to worry me, a bit of performance anxiety. But, that'll be exciting too.
That's the thing. I think physiologically, excitement and anxiety are pretty much the same thing. It's just how we frame it psychologically. One thing that you're doing already, you're already posting recordings on the forum, so you're already playing for an audience. Was that stressful at first?
Look, some forums are a bit unfriendly, and you'll put a post up there, and all you'll get is criticism, and that's quite rife on Facebook and some sort of internet forums. But your forum hasn't been like that. It's been very sort of supportive. Those people that do interact really have good advice and good things to say. There's nothing negative that's come up. So I was a bit hesitant at first, but when I'd seen what had happened to other people's posts, I thought, this is great. I'm going to come along and do it too. And I've been getting some really useful feedback from people, well, particularly yourself.
Awesome.
It must be quite a job. You're giving feedback to hundreds of people all the time.
Yeah, but I mean, that's kind of what I enjoy doing. That's I talk to other harmonica teachers about it, and they say exactly the same thing. Like, wow, how do you do it? But it's a pleasure. It's especially a pleasure to watch someone over months and years and kind of see the progress. Because I think that's the thing that is quite difficult to convey when someone starts out on the instrument, is that it is going to take a decent chunk of time to get anywhere with it. And I think that there was a great TED talk about the first 20 hours of any skill, where you kind of need to get 20 hours under your belt before you can start enjoying something. You're not going to be great after 20 hours, but it's also not this idea of 10,000 hours. Once you've got that chunk of time that invested, you want to keep going. Do you think that rings true for you with harmonica?
Oh, yeah, for harmonica and pretty much all of the things that you try and attempt in life, enjoyable pursuits. One of my other hobbies, as I might have said at the start there, is martial arts. And it's a bit the same with that. You just, once you get started and you get into it, there's a long pathway, and the pathway is what you have to enjoy. The end result is going to happen. It's the journey that's important. Yeah, so for sure. Same with harmonica.
Yeah. Absolutely. So you said that you came to harmonica because you wanted to be able to have an instrument that you could join in with other musicians. Now that you've started learning harmonica and you're starting to learn a bit more about the whole thing, do you have extra goals? Is there more that you want to do with it?
Probably my 5-year plan, I think, as I set it out, is that I want to be able to play more just improvisation as a solo harmonica player. And I have to say, your improvisation course that you've got out there has really helped put me on track with that, because the questions that I've had that have popped up to myself have been answered in the course. And I was quite surprised at that. I'm about midway through it now, and I think I've reached my level of expertise with the course for the time being, that I'm going to have to stay about week 3 for quite some time as the rest of my abilities crop up. But yeah, that's my long-term goal. Short-term now, I'm trying to get myself to the stage from being an outright beginner to getting ready to go to advanced beginner lessons. And for that, I think I need to be getting clear notes and bends most of the time, maybe not all the time, but most of the time, and internalizing some common riffs that you might start to hear people playing. Ear training too is something that I want to be able to do, and I had a bit of a sneak advanced look at the next part of my improv course, and that's in there as well. So I'm looking forward to getting involved with that. Trying to, as you often say, feel a bit musical. I'm trying to feel more musical with the things that I'm doing. and I might put on a blues track and try and mimic along rather badly with the harmonica, trying to get the same sort of sound or the same sort of rhythm going along. That's for me, and I enjoy working on that, and getting better with it is one of my goals. And just to really work on my breathing and relaxing while I'm playing. I often run out of breath at the wrong sort of time, and I think I need to get that under wraps. So that's what I'm working on at the moment. They're my goals for now.
Nice. I mean, that is a serious chunk of goals, but I like that you framed it as a 5-year plan, rather than these are the things I want to achieve in the next 6 months, because I think there's a decent chunk of stuff there. The breathing thing is really interesting, because I think that's the biggest struggle for 99% of people starting out on harmonica. There's a tendency to play too hard and not have enough breath as a consequence. And so kind of learning how to relax with this thing, it's exciting. Playing a musical instrument is exciting. So it's quite difficult to relax when you've got that thing in your mouth and you think, yes, I'm making music. That automatically makes you tense. And then there's the anxiety about whether you're being musically valid. I think a lot of people struggle with that as well. So relaxation and working on breathing more and more gently through the instrument is huge. I'd say that's the most important thing to focus on. I'm intrigued because not everyone that I'm interviewing on this is a student of mine, but you are. So I can ask you, how are you practicing? What's your methodology?
Right. Well, it's interesting. I'm using your course as like my basic framework, and each month you'll have a lesson. At the moment, it's 12 bar blues number 9, where you've introduced a 3-draw half-step bend on top of the 4-draw bend. So what I try and do is I look for things in my resources, in my books, or on the internet, or whatever else might be out there that are similar to what you're teaching, and sort of widen my playing a little bit along your framework, if that makes any sense. So I'm doing that at the same time and trying to get a few more things in. So I'll do that, and I'll also play some, I guess, simple folk or country melodies, like Red River Valley, You Are My Sunshine, those sort of things, little ditties, just to get my mouth used to playing clear notes and finding out what the notes sound like on different key harmonicas. So that's something I'm doing all the time. And playing the scales just casually, while it's in my right or my left hand, just going up and down and doing that. And now introduced the blues scale in there as well, trying to get that going well. I think I might have jumped ahead of the course a little bit with that, but I quite enjoy the sound, so I'm enjoying doing it. And I think I'll stick with that as well. So that's kind of how I've got myself an amp too. All the gear and no idea, I suppose. So it feels a little bit at the moment. But I pick that up occasionally, set it all up, and I'll have a little bit of a play, because I want to keep all these things running together in parallel, so that as I get better just playing acoustically, it should be better on the amp as well. At the moment, all I'm just playing is myself louder. I'm not getting those skills, but holding the microphone, and that's another skill in itself.
Definitely. And I think you're doing everything right. It's really easy as a teacher to be very strict and say you have to work through this and you have to achieve this before you can move on to the next level. But the reality is that there's an element of that, but you also need to maintain your interest and your enjoyment. And I like that it sounds like you've introduced play as well as practice. And that's really important. There's some hard work there, but there's also a bit of lightheartedness with playing with the amp. And I'm glad that you realized that the acoustic tone and sound is what you get out of the amp. So the amp is only going to make that louder. So if you have a great acoustic tone, you'll have great amplified tone, no problem. But if you don't have the great acoustic tone, then the amp's just going to make it louder. So that's a good realization.
Exactly.
So I was wondering, because you're you're not necessarily the person who's kind of listened to tons and tons of blues music over the years and decided to play harmonica because of that. Is there anyone that you've discovered over the last few months that got you really excited? Any players?
Probably the thing that I like to listen to most, and I'll put it on when I'm exercising in my gym, is I like to listen to Magic Dick and the Geils band.
Uh-huh.
And so I really enjoy that music because I can have a hack at playing it as well, which is part of that. I can sort of do a little bit with Floyd's Hotel, that kind of stuff.
Very cool.
So that I've really enjoyed, and it's taking me down some other interesting pathways as well with new music that I can listen to. I really like that dirty sort of grungy amp sound that you get with the Chicago blues.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been trying to find those wherever I can find them. Little Walter and Sonny Boy, James Cotton, that sort of thing. I'm really quite enjoying that.
Very cool. Very cool. Cool. Well, before we call it a day, I'd love to know if you have any questions that you want to ask me while we're on the line. I'm putting you on the spot.
Let me think. Well, where do you intend to take this next? I mean, I've said that I have an interest in learning a little bit more about music. Do you think you might introduce some new lessons or modules around that sort of thing? What ideas do you have for the school where you might be going next?
I didn't quite hear. What kind of music?
Where do you think you'll be going with the school next? What new modules do you think you'll be introducing?
So I've got tons of plans. I've got this huge long list of things that I want to add. So we currently have 4 levels in the school: beginner, advanced beginner, intermediate, and advanced intermediate. And the advanced intermediate I'm not entirely happy with. I think it stands as it is pretty well, but I want to redo it because I've got some new ideas for how I'd approach that material, and I'd like to introduce some other material earlier within that context. So that's something I'm very keen to redo. I'm also keen on adding in some kind of quick courses that kind of give you a quick win on a specific thing. So one of them is going to be playing amplified and learning about good microphone technique and using an amp and setting up an amp well and setting up effects well and how to practice that.
Sign me up.
Well, that once it's filmed, it'll be part of your subscription, so you'll see it there. And yeah, there's a whole bunch of things like that. I'm still very keen to have other teachers involved for styles that I'm not very confident in playing, because I'm a very kind of general blues player, and I can teach a bit of country blues, but not enough to go very, very deep. So I can do an introduction. I'd really like to get someone doing some kind of country blues stuff and some more of the melodic playing, which is another area that I don't play a lot of.
Nice.
And there are going to be some kind of chromatic lessons for blues players as well in the future, because that's something that I'm working on a lot myself. So yeah, there are always new ideas for things I want to add. It's just finding the time to film everything.
Oh, that's really cool. Well, I have another question.
Okay.
How do I, when I'm ready to get to the next level? So currently I'm in the beginner course,
Uh-huh.
but I see occasionally you put out an announcement that somebody's progressed to the next level. How do you make that decision? How does that happen?
So when you get to the end of a level, the final practice guide module is actually a test piece that you have to learn and submit. And the test piece is something that has been fiendishly devised by me to be as upsetting and painful as possible for the level that you're currently at. And so basically it kind of tests you on everything that you should have accomplished by the end of that level. So people will submit those, and then generally they'll have to resubmit a couple of times before I say that it's okay to move on. I'm aware that a lot of people don't bother submitting and they just forge ahead without checking whether I think it's okay. That's absolutely their prerogative. But if you want to know that I think you're ready to go to the next level, that's the thing to do. And that's actually something that I'm looking at adding into the school in the future, is more regular quizzing for you to be able to check what you should have achieved before you move on to the next level.
So with the submissions that we do post to the forum, what are you really looking for there? Do you want the submissions when I think it's as good as I can get it, or is it just about putting where I'm at this current point in time, even though I know it's not as good as it's going to be? Do you want to hear that?
This is a question I hear a lot, and I think, well, I'll tell you a story about a student I had years ago, which will hopefully answer this question. So this guy came, it was actually a guitar student, and he came in for his first lesson, and I asked him to play something for me, as you would in a first lesson. And he played this incredibly complex fingerstyle piece, and I was utterly blown away. And any teachers out there will recognize this fear of, oh no, this student has rocked up and they're better than I am. How do I keep them interested? And then I started trying to teach him things at that level. And I realized that he just learnt this one thing very, very, very well. And everything else was very basic in his playing. And basically, to kind of answer your question with that anecdote, if it's really easy to practice one thing to a point where you get it really, really good, but that's not necessarily indicative of your general playing level. So I think aiming to submit more regularly rather than really, really nailing, waiting until you've nailed something before you submit it is much better. And then generally I can help you get better quicker if you do that. Because I'll spy things that you maybe didn't notice that you'll just start practicing, and you can practice bad habits as well as good habits. So I think I wouldn't wait until things are perfect. I just get into the habit of posting regularly, and be aware that if I give you feedback that something isn't perfect, you need to keep doing work on it rather than just say, oh, well, Tomlin said it was pretty good, and ignore the things I said weren't good and just move on.
Well, the information is important. You can't be nice all the time, I guess. Sometimes you've got to tell people what's going on.
Well, you do the compliment sandwich. So you start with a nice thing, then something less nice, and then finish with a nice thing. So that's generally what I do with my feedback. I don't want to overwhelm people with lots of things they need to work on. Just one thing at a time is usually enough.
I do remember a bit of feedback you gave me that came with a bit of a warning before you fired it on me, all of the things that I needed to correct before moving on.
Yeah.
So that was good. I think I'm working through it.
The thing is, I mean, you are still very fresh and you're doing really well for such a short period of time. So I wouldn't worry too much. My biggest fear is that people take it too seriously. I've had quite a few students drop out because they feel a lot of pressure, probably from me, but also from themselves, to be incredibly proficient very quickly. And that's just not the point. It's the joy and fun of playing and learning on a longer time frame that's important.
Yeah, I guess sometimes you think, well, for me with my 4-drawer bend, I thought I'd never be able to get it. Now I've got it and it's easy. That's what I try to remind myself when I can't get something, that eventually I will be able to do it if I just keep at it. So
yeah, definitely. Yeah. That's the attitude. Well, Peter, this has been absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to chat with me. I really, really appreciate it.
It's been great talking to you, Tom. Have a good day.
You too. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Tomlin's Harmonica podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating and review on your podcast player of choice. Join me next Monday for the next episode. Happy harping!